Hi, this is Jason from Effective Dashboards and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to talk you through the KPI card, and I'm going to talk about 3 different examples where the KPI card can be used and how to configure it. Okay, so let's get started with example number 1. So in this example here I've got a KPI card and we're just going to add it in, and before I get started with the example I just want to show you a little bit about this card. So KPI card displays a single value, which is your KPI, and also which is called the indicator. So in the field value you can see there's 3 options here. There's the indicator. Now what makes this KPI card different from a normal card, just a standard card which I've covered in a separate video, is that it also requires you to have a time domain, a trend axis. It doesn't need to be a time domain, but you need a trend axis. Normally it's going to be a time domain so that you can look at a trend over time. So the trend axis is the next option here, and that's going to be your trend or your time domain or whatever the axis is going to be. And then finally the KPI card has the ability to have a built-in goal or goals so that you can compare the value to a target or a limit or a threshold. So that's the 3 options there. So let's just add in the first one here. So we're going to look at 3 different options. The first one we're going to look at is, I just need to remind myself actually, is going to be productive man hours. Here we go. So productive man hours. So this one is where we want to set a target and we want the value to be above a certain target. So above a certain target means that it's good. Okay, so we want to be above the target. So we're going to go and take out the data here. So I've created some data. It's a really simple data set. Basically, for each of the KPIs, I'll just quickly show you this. I don't want to sort of complicate things with a data set. So for our operating temperature, all I've got is, for example, a date and a temperature. Okay, so same for production efficiency. Now these would be calculated measures that would take information from a table or multiple tables to calculate a value. But just for the ease of demonstrating this, it's just a date, and that's going to give us a date range and an actual a value. Now the other thing I've done, just as part of the setup here, is I've created a dates table. So again, I've got a link below to a video explaining why and how to set up a dates table, and it just gives us a continuous range of dates and guarantees that we've got a date for every day, typically. Depends what granularity you use, and it allows you to slice and dice it by various different months and years and month-year combinations. So below there we've got that, and that's going to be our x-axis, this date table linked to each of the dates for the KPIs. The other thing I've set up here is some targets. So each of the different KPIs have got a target. Okay, so you need to set up a target. All I've done with the targets is just stuck it in as a measure and just allocated a number there. Okay, so that's the data setup. So let's go back into this first example here. We're going to go to production efficiency. It is production efficiency, and I'm going to go and in the indicator I'm going to create this measure, add in this measure. Now it doesn't show you anything yet, and it's got this little information, and it basically says that you need to have at least 2 fields. You need to have the actual measure and you need to have this axis here. So let's go up to our dates table and we're going to use the date. We can see as soon as we put this in, it should come alive. Okay, so straight out of the box we've got a trend over time, and we've got a value here which is a percentage, and that's the measure. Okay, so already we've got a couple of useful bits of information, the trend and the actual measure. So let's go and add in the final part here, which is the goal. And I'm going to go, and we've got a target for PE. Here's it here. We're going to put that in here, like that the first time. There we go. Okay, so now we've got a color and we've got some additional values have appeared on the card. So the first thing we've got here is we've got the goal. So the goal here is 98. Now if I go in to the value here for production efficiency, in fact actually not here, it's in this target here. Here we can see it's 98. It's formatted as a percentage, so it's 0.98. Okay, so that's now comparing automatically without me having to create any measures or create any additional code, we've now got the target and we've got a comparison between the target and the actual value there. Okay, so straight away we've got some good quality information, or good information to actually provide the user with a comparison between a target and the actual value itself. So the next thing we need to do is we just need to look at a few configuration options. Under general, nothing new here, same as in any other visualization. In the indicator, now this is where we've got the actual size and all of the information there. Now the only thing that's in here that's of note is this icon here. Now you can see it's red, and I'll show you in a minute why that's red. But if something is red, it means it's out with the target, above the target or below the target, depending on how you've configured it. And this icon here can just give you an extra little bit of an indicator. Okay, so it's quite subtle. There's nothing, you can't choose the icon. It's all done behind the scenes, but you can decide whether you want to leave that on or take that off. You can change the size of the icon, so you can make it bigger or smaller. It actually probably looks, in this example here, probably looks a bit small, so we'll make it slightly bigger. And then you've got the normal sort of formatting, changing the height and the decimal places, etc. So let's put 0 decimal places in here. We're just interested in that. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is the trend axis. So we've got this trend axis here, and that is telling us what the trend is up until the current value, which is the value we see just now. Okay, and that will be corresponding to this value here. There's no indicators of what the trend, the X and Y axis are. It's purely a trend, which is fine. For this particular example here, we're not displaying a graph. If we were, we'd use a line chart. So it's fine just to give you an indication of are we getting better or worse, which is quite important. So that's can be toggled on and off. There's not much you can do with this apart from change the transparency. You make it 10, it just makes it slightly more subtle. So that's the next option there. Goals. Now this is where it starts to become a bit more interesting here. So you can decide whether you want this goal on or off, and it just displays a bit of text that tells you what the goal is. It a goal? Is it a limit? Is it a target, etc.? And the actual value itself. Now, what I've said here is if you've got a value where the goal is above a certain value, the goal is to be above a certain value. So in this example here, production efficiency is how efficiently we are producing oil and gas, or any product really. But it's something we use in the oil and gas industry to look at how much we can produce versus how much we've actually produced. And the delta is not good. It means you've underproduced to your capability. It's the same if you're manufacturing shoes or steel or anything of that nature. The plant's got a value, so we want it to be as high as possible. It can be above 100%, but it shouldn't really be above 100%. 98, 99%, 97%, up to that sort of neck of the woods is pretty good. So that's why I've put a target here, 98%. So in this example here, we want the goal. I'll just scroll down. Oh, it's actually under color coding. So we want the direction of the color coding to be high is good. Okay, so if it's above this target that we've set, it's good. Okay, and that's why we've got this. Good color is green, neutral color is this yellow, and the bad color is red. Okay, so it's red because high is good, and it's currently below. It's 94 and it should be 98. It's currently below the target. So we've got a goal here. Goal is fine, but you can change that. And what I would say is if you want to be above a value, then use something that describes the fact that you're aiming towards that value. Okay, so goal is good, target you can use. And the other tip that I would use here, objective maybe is another word you could use. You can use those types of words. So you're aiming towards or to exceed something. And that's why I would also add in this greater than. Okay, because that then gives you an indicator that it's not just to be on that target, it's to be greater than that target, equal to or greater than. So you could put equal to or greater than, and to do that just put in a space here and then put greater than, and you can see target greater than 98%. Just a little subtle difference between the target being 98%. Now it might be that that is actually the target, and one of the case studies we'll look at is something similar to that. But for this one here, we want it to be at that target or above. And then, so that's the goal. We can obviously change the color. Now the other thing you can do under the goal is you can change this label. So at the moment it's telling us that we are 4.08% below this 98% target. So we've not created any measures. The measures to calculate that would be reasonably complicated for somebody that's a beginner. So this is a real advantage of this card here. You get that for free. You just get that out of the box. But you can either just display the value, the absolute value. We're 4% below. Or you can display this value here. Now it's going to be a little bit odd because it's going to be an absolute value in terms of percentage, and it's going to be an actual percentage in terms of the percentage. So you just need to be aware that that might be the case. It works probably a little bit better if you've got an absolute value, and we'll show an example soon, and a percentage. But because these are both percentages, it just isn't quite exactly what you want to see. It could be a little bit confusing. So that is the goals section. The color, yeah, good as high is what we'll stick with for just now. And the rest of it is, oh yeah, and there's another one here, date. So the current date is basically the date that you want to show here is the date, or the last date in the sequence that you filtered on. Okay, now our filter here takes us up to the 30th of June. I'll just take that across to the bottom here. So from the 1st of May to the 30th of June. Now what I can do here is I can turn on the date, and we can see it's got that date there. Okay, I would suggest that if you're using one card, great, and if you've got a collection of cards that all represent the same date, put another text field somewhere with a date in it, and another calculated column with another calculated field with a date in it, because otherwise you're just going to get something replicated multiple different times. However, if you've got a KPI that perhaps one is the end of a week, one is the end of the month, one is the end of the quarter, and you want to know what the last date was, then that's a great example of where you would use a date on each KPI card. So that's just another hint of where I would either decide to use or not to use that date, because it does take up a little bit extra space in here, and you don't need to put it in if every KPI is measured as of the 30th. We'll turn it off for just now, just to keep things simple. We've got the title, we've got the background, and all the usual stuff in here. Okay, so that's the KPI card. The value that we've got here is shooting for something that's above a certain value. If we want to do the same thing, let's just copy this actually. So I'm going to just copy this one. So example 2 is we want to be below a certain value. So if we were to do, for example, the safety critical backlog, and we want to bring in our target here for our safety critical backlog, which is, in fact I've just put the target in here, excuse me, a target in there. I'm going to put safety critical backlog as the measure. Yeah. Okay, so in this example here, the target is not above 100, the target is below 100. So let's go and change the target first of all. And this is what we're calling, this is what I'm talking about here, is just changing the name. So rather than be a goal, you don't want to aim for that target, you want to be below that target. So what you can use is limit, or maximum, or threshold. So we'll put limit, and again we'll put in the less than. So limit less than 100, and we are below it by 31%. Now by 31 is the number, and we're below it by 31%. So this is a little bit better here, because now we've got a number and a percentage, which happen to be the same because I've set the target at 100. So the next thing I need to do is, we don't want this to be, we want to change the color coding. So the color coding now is the direction low is good. Okay, so if it's below this limit or this target we've set, then it's going to be good. If it's above it, it's going to be bad. Okay, so low is good. So that's all that's doing is reversing the direction of what's good or bad. And we can change the title, etc. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail just now. Okay, so that's my my hints and tips for something above a target is good or below a target is good. Just a little configuration change there. Okay, next we're going to look at setting a warning and then a limit. So you can actually put two different values into the targets. So let's copy this. I'm going to paste it into here. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to look at a medium and a low target. Okay, so what I've done, and just pause it a second there, I've added in another one now. So we've got a safety critical backlog warning, which is 60, and we've got a safety critical backlog high, which is 100. So if it gets above 60, we've got the option here to configure a warning, and that is where, in this color code, and that's where this neutral color comes into play. So how that works is you go in here and you put two targets in here. Now you lose some of the ability to display the difference between the current value and the target. So I'll let you see how that works. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got the critical, we've got the high value and we've got the warning value. Now what I would probably do there is just swap them around. We can see 60, 100. So it isn't immediately obvious that that's the case, but you've got, that's what's happening. It's basically saying the limit is less than 60 or the 100. So it's we could maybe change the word in there, but this is what's happening anyway. It's whatever, if it's below 60 or below this, not this target here. So if I were to change that target, the warning target, to say 70. It'll be green. Now if it's above the warning target, so let's change that warning target, or the first target. So let's change that back to 60 again. So if it's above the first target, but below the second target, which is the high value of 100, then it's going to be this colour here. And obviously if it goes above the 100, above the high value, then it'll turn red. Okay, so it just gives you the ability to give a little bit of a warning and then a critical, a little bit of a warning and say, well, if we're looking at a few different KPIs, if one's yellow, we ought to really start looking at that pretty soon. If one's red, we've got to address it straight away. So another option there, just so you can understand that there are some sort of different configuration options. You do lose a little bit here in that you lose the ability to display the difference as a value and as a percentage. But that said, it's still useful if you do have a situation where you want to have a warning, then a critical level. Okay, so the final one, example number 4, is another example where we're going to use the two values. So I'm going to go back in, I'm just going to copy that, let's paste it in here. And in this example here, I am going to use, rather than safety critical backlog, I'm going to use this temperature. Now with temperature, what we want to be able to do is we want to show an indicator turning red anytime it goes out with a range. Okay, so if it goes too high or too low, it's a big issue. We want a constant temperature, or within a constant banding. Okay, so what I would do is we'll get rid of this, we'll get rid of that, and we've got a temperature high, and we've got a temperature low. Okay, so the temperature high is what we can see here. In fact, we can maybe even turn it around. I think it just reads better if we've got the... Now, what we can do here is we can go in and we can change this to high-low band. Okay, so the high-low band is 25 to 35. So as long as the value is within that band, we want it to be green. If it goes outside that band, we want it to be red. So how we would do that is just simply change the color coding. So rather than the color being good, we can use good as low, it doesn't really matter. Then we want that to be red, and bad is red. So and then in the middle, we want that to be green. Okay, so it's 27 here, so it's in between 25 and 35. Now, if this value here, let's just change the, if I were to go and change these targets to be yeah, let's change the target to say, okay, the banding is going to be tightened up a little bit, and we want it to be between 30 and 35. So the lower value is 30 to 35. So change that to 30. And we can see it's turned red. Now, I wanted to do that because this indicator, because it's looking at this good colour, you do need to switch off this indicator, otherwise it's going to give you a red colour and it's going to give you a tick, which is going to be a little bit confusing. So if you use it as to do this banding, then just switch the indicator icon off. You can't make use of that. Okay, so hopefully you've picked up some hints and tips here on, first of all, how to configure the card visual and set up the targets and configure the values you can see on the screen. You can really configure it to show quite a lot of information out the box, saves you creating any DAX and any measures, which ultimately you would want to be able to create at some point, but if you're just starting out or you want to create something really quick, then this is going to be the tool for you. There's a few cons. The first one for me is that it doesn't allow you to change the color or dampen the color for the trend. It would be nice to be able to get this value here highlighted, but the trend a little bit, just maybe the same, a light grey color, or at least control the color you see in the trend so you can make it less subtle. However, given that yeah, the amount that you get right out the box without much work having to create any DAX code, I think it's a really good card, a really good visual. And you can see here, if you want to configure it to look a little bit neater and a little bit crisper and cleaner with the shadow and stuff, check out the video link below, and I go through how I do that for the card, and it's exactly the same for this one here. Now, if you are interested in setting up a KPI management system, I've got a course that's dedicated purely to understanding how to set up measures and create the DAX that allows you to really control the conditional formatting that you can use. So again, have a look at that. If it interests you, if it's your type of thing, you get first few lessons for free, so you can kind of get an idea about what it's about, and I'll leave a link to that below as well. So thanks again for listening. If you like a video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest videos, if this is your thing, then press the subscribe button and you'll be given a notification anytime I release a new video, which is around once a week. I'll talk to you in the next video.